Let me put it this way. Imagine we're sitting somewhere having coffee, and you bring up the usual antinatalist debate. The spreadsheets come out, the philosophical calculators. Someone starts drawing a scale on a napkin, pleasure on one side, suffering on the other. Then they start arguing about which side weighs more. And I'm just sitting there thinking, why are we doing this? Why are we pretending this is an accounting problem? Because the moment you step back, the whole exercise starts to look strange, almost absurd, as if the morality of creating a person could be determined by a truth table. Okay, if pleasure is 52% and suffering is 48%, then it's acceptable. But if suffering hits 51%, then maybe we shouldn't. What kind of reasoning is that? Think about how we evaluate harm in literally every other situation. If I asked you whether it's moral to punch someone in the face, you wouldn't pull out a spreadsheet. You wouldn't say, wait, let's calculate. Maybe the punch causes 7 units of pain, but it also builds character, so that's 3 units of benefit. And maybe they'll laugh about it later, so that's another 2 units of pleasure. Nobody talks like that. Nobody reasons like that. The presence of harm itself is already the problem. We recognize something very simple. Deliberately inflicting harm on someone without necessity is wrong. That's it. No scale required. But suddenly, when it comes to creating a person, the conversation changes. Now we're expected to evaluate an entire lifetime like it's a cost-benefit spreadsheet. People start debating whether the sunsets, the ice cream, and the good memories outweigh disease, grief, anxiety, exploitation, aging, and death. And I'm left wondering, why is this even framed as a trade-off in the first place? Who exactly decided they get to weigh those things for someone else? That's the part that never makes sense to me, because the person whose welfare is being calculated isn't in the room. They didn't ask to be here. They didn't request the experiment. Yet people feel perfectly comfortable deciding on their behalf that the net value will probably be positive. Imagine applying that logic anywhere else. Imagine saying, I'm going to harm you, but don't worry, the good moments later might outweigh it. That wouldn't sound like moral reasoning. It would sound like rationalization. And more importantly, the scale itself misses something fundamental. Harm is not just a number on a balance sheet. It's a real experience. It's pain, fear, illness, grief, humiliation, loss. These aren't abstract variables. They are concrete states that people endure. You don't need a philosophical equation to know this. You can see it everywhere. Walk outside. Hospitals exist for a reason. Cemeteries exist for a reason. Entire industries exist to manage suffering. Medicine, therapy, insurance, disaster relief. People struggle with depression, chronic pain, financial stress, loneliness, violence, and aging every single day. This isn't speculation, it's the observable structure of reality. So when someone says we need to calculate whether suffering outweighs pleasure, it feels like they're missing the point entirely. The existence of harm itself is already ethically significant.
The question isn't whether suffering wins the competition against pleasure. The question is much simpler. Who has the right to impose any of it on someone else? Because that's what creation actually does. It doesn't just introduce pleasure. It introduces vulnerability. It introduces the possibility, indeed the certainty, of harm. And the person receiving that package never consented to it. That's why the scale becomes irrelevant. Whether life contains more pleasure than pain or more pain than pleasure doesn't resolve the ethical issue, because the ethical issue isn't about totals, it's about imposition. You're deciding that another conscious being will experience whatever this world contains, the good, the bad, the neutral, the catastrophic, all of it, and you're making that decision without their input. Once you see it that way, the truth table starts to look like a distraction, a mathematical theater that lets people avoid the uncomfortable core of the question. Harm exists. It is real, it is serious, and it can be profound. And choosing to create someone is choosing to expose them to it, not because they needed to exist, not because they requested the experience, not because there was a problem that required their presence, but because someone else decided the gamble was acceptable. And that's the part that no equation can justify.